Hello fellow cyborgs, and welcome to a very casual Black Writers Matter book haul on my floor because of a variety of reasons that are far too blathery for me to actually get into. I have not so accidentally acquired a baker's dozen more books, all of them written by Black writers, so let's just get started, and we are going to start with the books that you probably would have already guessed have been added to my shelves. This is The Color Purple by Alice Walker, which I read the first couple pages of in my Try a Chapter Black Writers Matter edition. I will link that video down below. This was hard-hitting, packed a punch, but I immediately knew it was going to be really important, and so it was important for me to get my own copy and add it to my shelves. This is a really old copy, much loved, and I'm hoping to buddy read this with Acacia in the upcoming months. You also saw this in that Try a Chapter video. This is A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines. This is about a young man who is unjustly sentenced to death row, and this other young man, both of them happen to be Black, who is asked to go and speak with him as he awaits his execution. I have already read this, and you'll hear me talk about it more in my September reading wrap-up. Here is Americanah by Chimamanda Negozi Adichie, and this was yet another one of those in that Try Chapter video. I really loved the first chapter, and I feel like I will have a lot to learn about as far as immigrant culture, Nigerian culture, etc., and I really enjoyed reading the first chapter, and so this obviously needed to be added to my collection. And the only nonfiction you saw in that video is The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. This explores the mass incarceration of young Black men, or just Black men in general, and how this has created a caste system within America. I saw Michelle Alexander's TED Talk on YouTube, and I read the first, I think there's the introduction to this. This is going to be really hard-hitting. I'm probably going to need to have to underline a bunch of things while I'm reading, and I'm hoping to read this with Acacia as well. So now let's get on to some nonfiction and not novels. I recently found Steph's video on her recommended reading of Black History Month from last year, and I will link that video down below. She's from the channel Stephanie, Spine, and Tim. I will link that down below. They're not active right now, but this video was awesome for nonfiction Black female writer recommendations. One of those being Talking Back by Bell Hooks. These are Black feminist essays, and Steph said something like, if you call yourself a feminist but you've not read Bell Hooks, then you're doing it wrong. So I picked this up. I started reading the first few essays, the first 5 actually, and then put it down because I have too many books that I'm currently reading at the moment. So far I'm enjoying the essays, though I find them a little bit repetitious, but I'm eager to finish this collection out and hopefully learn a bit more about feminism and also the Black identity. Another Steph recommendation was Playing in the Dark, Whiteness, and the Literary Imagination by Toni Morrison, who is most well known for her fiction novels like The Bluest Eye, Sula, The Song of Solomon. This explores the Africanist presence in canonical literature in the Western culture. She's looking at this Africanist figure in such canonical works or authors like Willa Cather, Edgar Allan Poe, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Herman Melville, Huckleberry Finn, the novel, and Ernest Hemingway's work. So I'm interested to try this out because Toni Morrison's work really intimidates me, but I thought maybe trying a nonfiction from her might be awesome. And I definitely like how this is not only talking about Black culture and identity, but it's also talking about literature, and it's from such a mind as Toni Morrison. So looking forward to this. Last Steph recommends is Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde. This is a collection of essays about race, gender, and sexuality, and Steph said that this also perfectly blended the poetic with the personal and emotional, and that's what I want my essays to be. So I'm very much looking forward to picking this up and diving into Audre Lorde. Steph had nothing but high praise to say about this, so I'm certainly looking forward to it. This is Make a Joyful Sound, Poems for Children by African American poets. My mom found it in her school book collection because she's a teacher for young children and asked if I wanted it, and I said yes. This is illustrated by Cornelius Van Wright and Ying Hua Hu and edited by Deborah Sleer, and this has a whole bunch of different poets in here, most of whom whose names I don't recognize yet, but I'm thinking that this will be a fun way to be introduced to Black poetry, or in this case specifically African American poets, as well as just some fun poetry and seeing how well they mesh with the audience that it's supposed to be marketed to. So yeah, definitely looking forward to picking through this big but easily accessible book. And next I have a pile of novels that you've not heard me talk about before, but that I have recently acquired for one reason or another. I decided to pick up Kindred by Octavia Butler. I have read Dawn by Butler and really enjoyed it and was impressed with her science fiction. This is a time travel story where our main character, Dana, is being pulled back in time into the antebellum South to rescue a white ancestor of hers whenever he feels afraid or his life is threatened. This I'm currently reading, actually. I'm on page 65 and it's super tense just because she's a Black young woman who's being brought back into the very racist South where even women themselves, let alone Black women, have no rights. So it's very tense, but I'm enjoying it. It's easy to read as far as the language, but it is not an easy read by any means. This is the Hottentot Venus by Barbara Chase Reboud. I'm guessing how to pronounce that name. After seeing my Black Writers Matter video, Victoria of A Hermit's Progress checked her shelves and saw that she had this and has had this on her shelves for about 3 years and proposed a buddy read with me, and I was like, yes, any excuse to buy more fiction written by Black writers, I would be happy to do so. And also I'm really looking forward to buddy reading her with something like this. So this is a historical fiction, but based on true events, about the life of Sarah Bartman, who was a Black woman in the late 1700s and early 1800s, who was subsequently sold to different freak shows and put on display and used to exhibit a like primitive sort of human in Western society in this time. She was not ever really looked at as a human and was subjected to many different sorts of cruelties. That being said, Victoria and I are interested in hearing about a Black person in the late 17 to early 1800s, and especially a woman, and I'm hoping that this will be a compelling read, even if it might be hard to stomach. And the final 3 books I have to show you were recommended to me by a lovely subscriber, Sharon, hi, who sent me a really wonderful email in response to my Black Writers Matter video. I really appreciated it, and within her email, she gave me 3 book recommendations and took the time to explain exactly why she thought I would like them or why they're significant, and even linked links to author interviews when applicable. And because of her, I watched a video on Toni Morrison, who is like my new goddess. I just want to hear her talk all day long. She just seems so intelligent, funny, articulate, and sensitive, and oh my goodness, Toni Morrison, just like kind of my new obsession at this point. But anyway, let's get into the books. So this is the Toni Morrison that Sharon recommended, God Help the Child. This is her like only modern set story. Bride is our main Black woman whose mother was passed for white, I think, and so she received a lot of damnation from her mother. And then there's this white child named Rain who is subjected to child abuse when she's very young, and their paths crossed at some point. So I really don't know what I'm getting into. I know that there's a lot of themes of child abuse in here, so it's probably going to be hard to stomach, but hopefully will be very rewarding at the end of the experience. Then she recommended The Bondwoman's Narrative by Hannah Crafts, edited by Henry Louis Gates Jr. And so apparently Henry Louis Gates Jr. found a manuscript and he went through the process of trying to get it authenticated and prove that it was a genuine manuscript, and to the best of his ability he was able to do that. And so he introduces this and I believe talks a bit about that process, and then has transcribed this narrative, which from the author interview it seems like she borrowed from a lot of literature at the time, so she was very, very well read. It's a bit gothic in tone, and I think it has to do with her escaping her masters. So I'm very eager to try this. This is like nothing else I have on my shelves, and this is supposed to be, her manuscript is the first book written by a Black woman. So very exciting, and I'm looking forward to trying this out. And finally, what I consider the pièce de résistance of this book haul is Roots by Alex Haley. This is a family saga spanning generations and generations, and was at one time serialized on the television, and I think that it is actually being being redone nowadays. Sharon kindly said that it took her like 4 years to read this. Like, you know, she kept putting it off for 4 years, but when she read it, it was one of the most rewarding experiences of her life. She was like, please, Amanda, if anything, try this. And so I was glad to indulge that request. I'm also really interested in this, not only because of its importance in Black literature and how it spans years, and then we can talk about Black culture and Black history over the years, but my recent most favorite book of all time, the one that beat out Jane Eyre, as you know, is East of Eden, which is a huge family saga. So I'm interested to see that family saga sort of play out, but in Black literature. So I'm very excited for this, and I'm hoping to get started on it later this year. It's quite big. I don't know how long it'll take me to read, but I'm definitely hoping to jump on this sooner rather than later. So those were the Baker's Dozen 13 books that I've recently acquired that are all written by Black writers. I'm very excited for them. I'm hoping to read through a bunch of them by the end of the year, my schedule permitting, though I have a pretty loose schedule at this point, so let's hope that I can accomplish that. Now I'm going to go fit those 13 big books into my TBR bookcase and then shake my head at myself, but in a joyfully amused sort of manner. Thank you for watching. If you have any recommendations for me of works written by Black writers, I'm always open to those recommendations, as this is something I am new at and really looking forward to explore. And also let me know if you have got on with any of the books that you saw me talk about today, or if you didn't get on with them. Spoiler free, of course, but you're always really good about that. Until next time, I hope that you are enjoying getting into a new facet of reading and continue to be lovely. Oh, and thank you to my patrons who continue to support me and this channel through Patreon, because you're awesome and I appreciate it. And it's just a really lovely thing that you're doing, and that you take your time and your finances to support my channel is just something that I really can't say thank you enough for. So thank you again, and I hope you're having a great day.